So you've been probably hearing about these medications that are designed to help you lose weight and lower your blood sugar. You know them better as Wegovy and Ozempic and Munjaro. What you may not be aware of is that the fitness industry is starting to get involved with these medications. And so to help us better understand this, and also for the fitness industry, fitness professionals who are watching us, to help us better understand all this, I can think of no other better person to talk to than Eric Durak. He is an exercise physiologist in California, and he has created what is likely the very first course for fitness professionals to help them deal with clients who have or who are taking these medications as well. Eric, thanks for coming on the podcast. And what, for those who may not be aware of this, can you briefly explain what these GLP1 agonist medications are and what they do, et cetera?
Well, GLP1s that come in an injection form, and thank you for having me on the show, Joe, again, appreciate that.
Sure.
GLP1 agonists are a synthetic version of a peptide that naturally occurs in the stomach, and it helps with the digestive process. And the reason that they started using this medication with people with diabetes is that I see a lot of synergy between how insulin is used in the body and how GLP-1. They're both sort of digestive, well, insulin's a hormone and GLP is a peptide, but they still have specific functions. And when you eat food, insulin will rise. It should cover the amount of sugars. It should help get that sugar into the system, and then it kind of goes away. And it's the same thing with GLP-1, which is a glucagon-like peptide. And in the body, it does the same thing. It actually rises in terms of digestion, and then it goes away. The interesting thing about the injectable form, the synthetic form, is that when you inject it on a Monday, it will rise to a certain level and stay there for 3 to 5 days until it's time for your next weekly injection. And in doing so, it does a couple things. It makes you feel not hungry at all. So essentially, it is kind of a starvation diet. It's a very low calorie diet. It's just instead of your own willpower, you have a needle that will help you on it. And then the second thing that it does is that it has a sort of a signal to the brain to not have a satiety index. And the satiety index is like, oh, my stomach is rumbling and I better get something to eat. That doesn't really occur. And this is where the weight loss comes from. The issue with the synthetic form is that the amount of lean body mass that goes away during the weight loss is about twice as much as normally we see occurring with a traditional weight loss program. Every weight loss program has some loss of lean tissue, primarily because of loss of water, and the water is what the muscles are mostly made of. The issue that I've really seen with GLP-1 medication is that when you take this and you start losing weight and you don't eat foods, you are not only kind of starving yourself, but you're also dehydrating yourself. And I believe, I've never heard anyone else say this, but my past research work in diabetes and exercise tells me that the basic premise of losing such a high amount of water means that your blood is more viscous. In other words, it's thicker. You have more issues with pumping within the pericardial sac. You have issues with venous return. You have issues with kidney filtration, with liver filtration. I mean, let me go on and on and on. It affects every organ in the body. And I've never heard any doctors talk about this. And people in the fitness profession need to know, because you and I both know that when you exercise, metabolic processes go up to 20%. So if you're having dehydration problems walking around the house and getting in the car and, driving to work every day, you're going to have way bigger dehydration problems when you're trying to leg press and bench press and pull down and do all of these other stations in the gym at 50 to 60% of your best effort. And that's kind of where this medication sits today, is that shows great promise for weight loss for a long period of time. my role in this whole story is, where does the exercise component come in, and how can we make that exercise as safe and efficacious as absolutely possible, because there is a need to maintain muscle mass. And at the beginning, the introduction, you just said that, the fitness industry is beginning to take notice, and it's like, yeah, because they have the only method available in this weight loss scenario, aka the weightlifting, that will help maintain the muscle mass. Nobody, I
Right.
mean, Weight Watchers doesn't do that. Jenny Craig doesn't do that. You know,
Right.
your local clinic's bariatric surgery, they don't do that. So this is why the fitness industry is so interested in this. So
Very interesting. You said an awful lot of things. A couple things I want to double click on. The loss of lean tissue twice as great so far we're seeing with these medications as with general weight loss by itself. You mentioned lean tissue, and then you talked about water, and I wanted to try to shine a little light on that. So by lean tissue, when we say the loss of lean tissue may be twice as much with, say, Ozempic as with regular low-calorie dieting, we're including water in that lean tissue. We're not saying that muscle loss is twice as great with Ozempic, et cetera, than with dieting alone. Am I hearing that correct?
well, the medical industry is not differentiating between muscle lean loss and all lean tissue lean loss. So in other words, you're going to have some atrophy of the liver. You're going to have some atrophy of the intestinal tract, which is paralyzed to some extent anyway.
Yeah.
The kidneys, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to have a tougher time doing their work because they are not hydrated. And what I see with and I'm going to use the word Ozempic. I mean, I could use Wegovy, Munjaro, Zepbound, et cetera, Semaglutide, Liraglutide, et cetera. There's this whole category. I can't even remember them all.
Right.
I do, and I don't, and I tell people that's not my job. That's your doctor's job to rattle off the names of 10 different classes of drugs. My job is to figure out what the physiology is in order to make exercise work better. But anyway, they're not differentiating. But the beauty of the fitness profession, and I'm going to try to come back to this in every question, is that when you go to a weight loss clinic, your doctor's going to put you on the scale. And he's going to say, Joe, I'm so proud of you. You lost 7 pounds this week or this last couple weeks, and you're down 28 pounds since we started. You're doing a fabulous job. And you're not going to say to him, well, what percentage of that is water, doctor? Because you're not going to know. But in the health club field, we have these wonderful body composition machines that are called bioelectrical impedance. And you stand on a Tanita scale or an in-body scale, and runs this very, very small current through the body, and it measures not just the body fat in the body or the body fat loss over time, it also measures the percentage of lean tissue and the percentage of water. And I think that I wasn't crazy about it 30 years ago, but now I'm like, wow, this is going to be a savior for the industry, because they're going to be able to tell these people in week 4, you've lost 3% body fat, but your body water is being stable because, and I'm gonna do a little, not a per se a plug, but this water bottle is called H2OPal.com, and on the bottom there's a sensor, and the sensor actually tells you in your app how many ounces of water you drink. So if you fill this up 3 or 4 times a day and you drink 3 1/3, you're going to know exactly how much water you take in. And I think this is such an important thing for the fitness industry, is that a well-hydrated Ozempic patient is a happy Ozempic patient. Because my experience back in the olden days of exercise and diabetes is that before we understood the relationship of exercise intensity and insulin regimes, you had people that would crash at the end of their exercise session. Their blood glucoses would be down in the 60s and 50s, which from an exercise standpoint is not very good at all. So I had to sort of blaze the trail on that, but I was kind of young and impetuous. I didn't know. But then again, nobody else did either. So we came up with a phrase that exercise is blood sugar dependent. And if you are a diabetic person, and you come into an exercise program with a blood sugar of, I don't know, 78 milligrams per deciliter, you're not going to have a very intense exercise program. You're going to take a glucose tab or you're going to eat some food. But if you come in with a glucose of 178, you can start training for a marathon, or you can do high intensity strength training because you know you're going to make it through that session. And this is the same thing with people on Ozempic, is we have to really monitor their physiology while they're and then have them sip water. My big thing is in the manual I talk about electrolyte supplements that you can actually put in the water. It's going to make them want to drink a little more because they can't drink a lot because they'll throw it up. Here's the issue. So, and I don't know if I explained this the last time, but the synthetic form of all medications, all GLP, GIP medications, uses a synthetic form of venom from Gila monsters. And when I heard this on a podcast, I said, I can't believe that. So, but then I went in. I think it's called Exerin 5 or Exerin 4, and it's a product of research from the University of Toronto that started in the early 90s. So it's a thing, and they not only use it in medicine, but they use it as an herbicide. They spray it on certain types of plants to keep certain types of bugs from eating. So it's a $1 billion industry. So it's not like that. Oh, that's the silliest thing I heard. Because the first time I heard it on a podcast, I said, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to paralyze the digestive tract? And but they're doing it. So that's
I've also heard people on TikTok, etc., basically vilifying, for lack of a better word, Ozempic and these meds because they are derived from, I think it's the Gila monster or Gila monster, however you pronounce it, the Gila monster venom. And I said the same thing. I'm like, really, is that true? And as you did mention it in your manual, and I've seen it elsewhere. It is derived from this lizard venom. A lot of things in nature come from, a lot of things in drugs come from nature.
A lot of things come from nature. A lot of drugs come from synthetic forms of nature. COVID shots used a form of venom from cobras. Okay, so why I don't know, but my thing is that with Ozempic, I look at the doctors say that most patients may be on this over their lifetime, and being the snarky little guy that I am, I say, well, if you mean their lifetime, like 7 years, because I would say that that's about as long as someone would be able to live on this drug, because they're going to be so chronically dehydrated. That their bodies and now every week things come out, Joe, every week. And somebody was saying now that they believe that if someone's on this drug for more than a few years, they're going to start seeing organ and tissue failure.
You bring up something interesting about that. People over in this country, United States, talking about being a long-term. Novo Nordisk, if I understand it correctly, is the creator of Ozempic or Wegovy, whatever they call it in other countries. And they're I believe it's a Swedish company. I believe they're from Sweden. Mm-hmm. They don't recommend this drug in that country for weight loss. They're recommending, as I have heard, a ketogenic diet for weight loss. So it's interesting, in the country that has been created, they're not recommending that medication. Right. Well, they're recommending diet.
Right. The European Union states in their medical portfolio stuff that drugs like Ozempic should be used as a last resort. So you're right. You're absolutely right. But in the United States, I mean, we just don't think the way everyone else does. We got to have this now.
It's unfortunate. We have such an unhealthy population, and I don't think we talk about the unhealthiness of the American population that much. A lot of it is due to being not just 10 or 15 pounds overweight, but sometimes 50 pounds overweight. So I think these medications can be a crutch to get people to be more healthier. But I'm with you. I don't think it's something that you should be on long term, like forever. Like if you're a type 1 diabetic, you're taking insulin forever. I don't think you should be taking this medication forever. I think the goal of these medications is to get you healthy, get you to where you are doing an overall good healthy lifestyle with exercise, resistance training being part of that, eating healthy, etc. But I think for the fitness people who are going to be, and maybe already are, encountering individuals who are taking Ozempic, you've already mentioned the dehydration aspect of this. which could impact exercise capacity. What are some other things that the personal trainer, group fitness instructor should be thinking about if they're working with somebody who's on these medications?
Well, that's got to be the $40,000 question. And
Yeah.
my business coach, Bob Esqueri, who has been in and out of the fitness industry for over 40 years, and Ann Gilbert, who has a women's health center on the East Coast, they've teamed up in the last couple months to write a series of articles, which Bob just sent to me a couple nights ago, on what's called emotional intelligence and training. Because there's a think tank group with Ozempic and exercise that's on LinkedIn, and I'm one of these people. And one of the PhD guys said that, that in an industry that used to shun fat people, now they want fat people to come in the door so they can make money from them. But in the process, they're going to have to learn to accept fat people. And that's where the emotional intelligence is. So the people, and Dr. Renee Rogers from University of Kansas spoke at the IDEA conference in July, and she said that one of her best friends who has struggled for years to lose weight went into a health club. And she was essentially so fat shamed the first day that, you got to work out hard, we're going to get rid of all that fat, but you can't do it without, whatever. And it was completely the antithesis of what she needed in terms of caring and nurturing and helping her through this process. She was there for one session, she never went back. And so this is what Karen talks about as a psychologist, and the same thing with Bob and Ann. The emotional intelligence now falls on the profession of exercise to accept these people in the door and not try to train them like athletes, not try to do a CrossFit program, etc. But to really keep them as members for life. And in order to have that mindset as a club, entity, you have to treat these people like
individuals.
how important how important this is going to be to their health is not just a 3-week program. It's going to be a 3-year program. And so that I think is going to be the biggest issue in the industry in the next year or so, is how trainers approach new Ozempic patients who walk in their door.
Yeah. Now, you bring up a good point. I don't think some personal trainers are equipped to deal with, say, the emotional aspects of obesity. And I think they're all in the whole, 3 sets, go to failure camp, and everybody should be treated the same way. No, it's called personal training. You've got to personalize the prescription to that person, who that person is. And if you're dealing with somebody who is, overweight, they may be dealing with some other issues besides just what you see on the outside.
Depression, lack of self-esteem, urge to eat weird foods, because I believe that part of the issue with obesity is not just, well, I eat 7 times a day, I have a whole pizza for breakfast. And then of course it's not a great, it's not great food. People I think are obese in America because they don't eat very good food at all. Whereas in Europe, you have people that still eat pastas and breads and Mediterranean diet, et cetera, but the oils that they use are very, very good. The breads are homemade. They sit down to eat as a family. And this is what the Blue Zones talks about. It's like, there are certain things that make people live longer and healthier. And the societal aspect, the family aspect, the community aspect is a huge thing that in America we just don't have. There's a meme that goes around Facebook, and it's got, in America, there's this aerial view of 20 cars lined up at a Starbucks waiting in the drive-up. And then underneath it there's 20 people sitting in a cafe in France, sipping their mochas, and they're spending the time. And when I was a kid in America, we used to make fun of people. Oh, those French and those other people, they're sitting around all afternoon drinking coffee. Oh, my. Best thing you could ever do as opposed to America's lifestyle. So I'll say this in terms of that last question, we as a society have to sort of change. And I see this as a massive opportunity for the health club industry to elucidate that change to people, based on what trainers know. You just made a comment that they may not be, completely trained in this, but that's part of what my book is all about, is to give them that. You don't have to be a psychologist, but I look at the medical profession and how they've failed patients time after time. If we look at weight loss, and I say this in the book, they used to have the stomach stapling. They had the Olestra. They had the Fen-Phen. We spoke about that in our last talk because, you seem to know a lot about the Fen-Phen. And I say all these things have been sort of an abject failure. And yet here we are again with another drug. So if the fitness profession can sort of tweak what they do and really get these folks in the door, that's going to be a big thing.
Again, off topic, one of my pet peeves is, why are there no celebrities on television talking about diet and exercise and being a healthy lifestyle? The only time we see a celebrity on television talking about diabetes and blood sugar is when they got diabetes and somebody's going to pay them to push a medication. That bugs the daylights out of me. Taylor Swift, why isn't she writing songs about eating salads and exercising? Why not? I mean, this is a legitimate question to ask. For people who have this power, again, I'm going to quote Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Why aren't people in authority, and let's say the celebrities, not that I view them as any smarter than anybody else, but they do have this platform. Why are they not talking about this? I did a quick TikTok video yesterday on getting off topic, but I did a quick TikTok video on the association between a diagonal earlobe crease in the earlobe, a wrinkle, a line, and the association of heart disease, because this has been we've known about this since like 1971, 72. Yeah, and I've been tracking it for a number of years. I got a lot of the research on it. I've been looking at it myself, and I'm like, hey, I remember when I didn't have it, and now I do. Well, somebody had commented and said, I'm terrified, now I have it. My hope is that you look at that crease and you have a good conversation with your doctor about maybe the other things you'd be doing, eating better, exercising, not smoking, etc. I don't think we take our health seriously enough, and that's why I would hope that people who had a platform will be talking more about this. I mean, again, the only person who talks about it in the political world is Kennedy, which, God love him for talking about it, because I don't hear any politicians talking about our national security problem where we're drastically overweight and taking multiple medications. I know people who are our age taking like 7 medications every day, if not more. Yeah. Wow.
And this is why I'm going to come back to the health club. The health club has for the last 30 years said, well, why can't we get those 80% of Americans who don't want to train in a health club? Well, out of those 80% of Americans, 60% of them are overweight and obese. And out of that 60%, if you get 20% to come to health clubs, you've doubled the membership of health clubs in just 2 years, from I'm going to say 28 million to 56 million. They're going to have to build more health clubs because they won't be able to fit everybody in there. So they have to think about this in terms of, be careful what you wish for. So, but it is a great opportunity, and I'm going to jump into the next segment here about why I think it's going to be even better for health clubs. About 3 weeks ago, I had tea with a friend of mine who I've known in Santa Barbara for many years, and she's a compounding pharmacist. And her conversation with me revolved around the fact that, and I hope I say this correctly, Bietta, which is one of the drugs. You've got Zepbound, and Bietta is one of these. I think it's a liraglutide. And she says what she's doing is she's compounding it as what's called a microdose. So instead of giving yourself an injection in the belly once a week, you now get to have a little plastic ampule that you take under the tongue. And they got flavors and all this kind of stuff, but the dosage is not 2 milligrams, 3 milligrams, 6 milligrams, or whatever. The dose is 0.25 or 0.50 per ampule, and you take 2 a day. So you're getting this slow stream in the mucosal membranes. You're not having to use the venom because it's not sitting in the stomach. It's going right into the bloodstream, and it does. But it's going in such a slow, not slow, but such a small amount that what I would consider collateral damage is not really happening as much. And it allows that person to exercise at a higher level because they can drink more fluids, they can eat a little bit more food during the course of the day, because some people, when they eat, they just throw up.
Yeah.
Or they have diarrhea or whatever, but that's because they've got this, what I used to say with insulin is you've got a bolus injection that you put into the body. Yeah. And if you do it in smaller doses, just like steroids. I mean, you've studied a lot about steroids. These guys that stack them in the bodybuilding world are the ones that had all the heart issues. But some of the work that's being now done in men's health with testosterone is that you cycle, use smaller doses, et cetera, and you ebb and tide based on physiology, circadian rhythms, and all this stuff. And I think the sublingual the sublingual GLP-1s are going to be a revolution for the health club industry, because they're going to allow trainers to have much more flexibility in how they prescribe exercise, because their clients have not been starving themselves for 5 days. That's going to be a big deal. So
I had heard they were working on sublingual or liquid versions of Ozempic.
They're already using them in a lot of places. There's a gentleman named Bob Thomas, and he's an industry consultant. And for the last year, he's been working with GLP1 companies, and he's trying to get the GLP patients in the doors to health clubs. And I had a conversation with him literally 2 days after speaking with my pharmacist, and he goes, "Oh, we already do that with all of our clubs. We already offer them, if their patients want to use sublinguals, we have this as part of the companies we work with." And I said, "That's pretty cool, because it is a game changer."
So the gym, I would imagine in this situation, has some association with a compounding pharmacy that makes this. How are they getting the sublingual Ozempic in the hands of the gym people?
Okay, the gym is not directly involved with the pharmacy. The intermediary company, Bob's company, is directly involved with the pharmacy and the physician groups who want to refer the patients. And one of the other things that I've been working on in the UK is weight loss centers who also work with the doctors. And I'll use this as an example. There's a weight loss clinic in Manchester, England, and people come into them once a week, and they do this to monitor their Ozempic, their weight, their food, their water. They have this whole system, and they're wanting to refer these people to health clubs. But the health clubs in the UK need to read my book first. That's sort of on their docket. It's like they all have to be trained in what Eric wrote. So we're working on accreditation processes and all that stuff. It's the weight loss centers, it's the telemedicine companies, it's the physician groups that are working with the compound pharmacists, and they're trying to get that. Now, the pharmacies would really like to have more relationships with health clubs, but it still is a prescription drug. So it still has to go through some hierarchy of doctor to pharmacist, doctor to telemedicine company, et cetera. So.
Okay. I've noticed some of this is being advertised on television now. Instead of going to a doctor, I've seen these companies, Hims, Roman, there's probably others out there advertising on television. Hey, we'll get you these medications. And I would imagine in that instance, you're just calling them up on the phone. They're putting you in touch with some doctor somewhere who's asking you a few questions and writing a prescription for this. I would imagine that's how they're doing it. Maybe a gym might do something similar. I don't think there's a protocol for that in place yet. So I think it's kind of like the Wild Wild West right now. Does that kind of make sense? I mean,
the issue that I see with Ozempic in needle form is, you're right, you can order this stuff online. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. But there's a lot of prescription drugs you can order online. My father used to order drugs online, and I thought it was kind of weird because his doctor would give an initial prescription, but to get that prescription refilled, he could go to the online company. So their doctor would just give an okay without even knowing my father as a patient. That's the issue. The built-in thing with using a compounding pharmacy is that it's an individual prescription for you, and you have to renew that by going to the compounding pharmacy so they can mix it up again for you. And I think that that's also a really good. It's got a back door to it. you just can't go get a sublingual. You just can't do it. You have to go through a compounding pharmacy. So it's a checks and balances that I really like. And again, because it's a smaller dose, I think it's going to be much more favorable to people. How much more weight will they lose or not lose? I don't know. No one's done a step 1 trial or a step 2 trial comparing sublinguals to injections. They should. I think that would be a great trial. And I also would like to see, and hopefully I'll do this, is a 1-year trial of people who are on the medication who have been able to exercise, because the philosophy right now with a physician group in Los Angeles, medical fitness center in Temecula, and a friend of mine who's got a medical fitness center in Minnesota, they basically say it's almost impossible to gain muscle when you're taking Ozempic. Their goal is to maintain as much muscle as they can. So instead of a 30% loss, they want a 4% loss.
Almost impossible to gain muscle while on these GLP-1 medications.
And let me actually go to the bodybuilding world, because there's so many similarities, and I think that people, if they can look at both sides of this, like the high intensity, I've known so many people who have cut for bodybuilding shows, and they've done body comp like twice a week, and they'll say, I'll lose 3 or 5% muscle, but it doesn't matter because I'm stripping away the fat as well. I'm a little smaller, but boy, can you see those muscles? And that's really the aesthetic thing they're looking for. I would say the same thing with people on Ozempic. It doesn't matter if you're gaining muscle. I don't want you losing 30%. That's where the danger is. Losing 3 or 4%, as long as you're well hydrated, I don't think it's a big deal.
Is that inability or perceived inability to gain muscle on these medications due to the fact that they're just not eating enough calories, eating enough protein?
Right. They just do not have the ability for muscles to recover, proportionally. Now, so that lends us to the nutrition side of GLP-1, and I look at these companies that have protein powders and super green formulas and all these kinds of things that they want to have people use. And people ask me, well, is protein powder the best thing that you can have while you're on Ozempic? I don't know, because in general, protein powder does not absorb that well with people who are not on Ozempic. When I had a conversation with a gentleman named Dr. Luco Moretti, who's a amino acid researcher, who has a company in Florida called Master Amino Acid Pattern. And of course, I think you know about MAP. The wonderful thing about MAP is that it has a 99% net nitrogen utilization. So it's almost entirely used by the cell for energy and recovery. Whereas organ meats have about a 50-60% absorption rate, and protein powders are somewhere around 25 to 40. And I'm like, so if you're not absorbing all of your protein powder in general, and you're taking a medication that's essentially paralyzing your intestinal tract, how much of that protein powder will you ingest while on the drug? And the answer may be 5%, 10%, who knows? We don't know. We need to do some sort of direct calorimetry, programs for this, but I don't know. But I think that, most of the doctors I know are recommending Ozempic people to eat a little bit more organ meat. Have a little bit more protein in your diet during the day, higher percentage. And that was the recommendation that we used to make to people who are diabetic. Instead of eating all these sugary foods, have a little protein at breakfast, eggs or other kind of meat. So, if you're having a salad at lunch, have meat, and this, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, now we've got the whole paleo diet, and whether or not that's going to be helpful or it's going to be the savior for people on GLP-1s, I don't know that either. So
interesting. It would be interesting for maybe some enterprising college student watching or listening to us right now to maybe test that master amino acid program among people taking GLP-1 meds to see if they figure anything out.
I'm kind of a couple steps ahead here. I'm hoping to work in the next 4 weeks with a company that has Ozempic patients, and we want to do like a little pilot study, etc., with them, and just see how well they're doing it, because they have the ability to get blood labs and all those kinds of things, and Just looking
Gotcha.
at a few blood lab issues here is going to be, I think, real important. So, yeah, right. There's 100 questions that need to be answered now
Yeah.
that this thing has been unleashed to the public. And now we've
Yeah.
got this GLP-1 medication that's been on the market for diabetes for a while, and it seemed
Yeah.
to have worked reasonably well with just the diabetic question. But again, it was under the radar until those celebrities started using it to lose all that weight. And now we're
Yeah.
starting to see the ramifications. I believe that the side effects have been there all along. It's just that when you've got a few 100,000 people taking the drug as in diabetes, they usually would talk about these things with their doctors. When you've got 13 million people now taking it for weight loss, now you're starting to see the ramifications of these issues at a much higher scale, like the celebrities, like Sharon Osbourne, who I think there's, they got these paparazzi taking pictures of her. I think she was down to like 97 pounds. She lost a third of her body. Well, she lost, a third of her body weight using Ozempic.
97 pounds doesn't sound healthy to me.
No, there's a picture of her coming out of a store, and I actually use it for one of my slides because, I never thought she looked bad, when she
Right.
wasn't on the drug. She's just
Right.
she's got to be someone in her 70s right now. She's an older woman, but
Yeah.
you can just see how unhealthy, when you start to lose the facial fat is when that's when the red flag should go up. So
Ozempic face. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I've heard
Ozempic
about
face,
that.
exactly.
Since we're talking about weight loss, potentially, how much weight can people expect to lose on these medications? In the past, when I've done cursory looking over of the research, I see somewhere 10 to 15%. Is that kind of in the realm? Is that realistic?
You're spot on. The Step 1 trial did a 1-year weight loss research study taking, and again, I'll just use Ozempic. They used a couple different brands, but they had a 16% overall across the board weight loss in about 60 weeks. And then when they took them off the drug for the next year, they gained most of the weight back. Not all of it, but most of it. And so you're right. On average, people will lose about around 15% of their body weight. So,
Which is
but
significant.
I think it's also dose dependent. People taking 1 milligram a week are
Yeah.
going to have a little bit different result than someone taking 4 or 5. So.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about potential side effects about this stuff yet, but true story, I have a friend who told me about her friend who was going to a wedding or some event about a week or two ago, and she's already been taking Ozempic for weight loss, but decided, I want to lose a little bit more weight before this event. And so just before, like a couple days before the event, took like 2 or 3 times the normal dosage that she was normally taking. Apparently spent the weekend throwing up, basically overdosed on Ozempic.
Which is actually not that uncommon.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
why anyone would want to change, this is the problem that I see with the injectables, is that if you have your vial that's got, I don't know how many CECs in it, and then you've got to take so many milligrams at a shot, and again, well, if 1 milligram is going to work good, maybe 2 is going to work even better. Joe, I don't want to get into a discussion about how and why people do drugs in America. You did ask, you did mention side effects, and my friend Sally, who runs the weight loss center in Manchester, England, said she's been working with people on Ozempic drugs for 4 years now, and she says we hardly see any side effect, hardly any. And I said, yeah, but Sally, they come in every week and they work with you. So you titrate dosages, you do their body weight, you ask them questions about food, you make sure they're drinking enough fluids, you change the composition of foods, they talk with you. They have a whole program with you.
Yeah,
No wonder you
supervised.
don't see many side effects, because they're not in America with the Wild West. Well, if 1 milligram's good, 5 is better. You're not doing it that way. You have a clinically proven program that you see thousands of patients every month. Thousands of patients you got like 10 clinics or so. you guys are doing a fabulous job. And when you get them into the exercise programs, they're going to be doing even better. That's the kind of stuff that we need to see here, but we don't. We get them online.
But yeah, in terms of side effects, I mean, it doesn't affect the gym industry. The one that I had heard of is gastroparesis, your paralysis of the stomach, which
Right.
again, for anybody having surgery, they always tell you don't eat, for 12 hours before surgery. You probably want to extend that before, if you're taking these medications, just in case. You want to avoid aspiration during anesthesia.
Yeah.
But any other potential side effects that might be problematic for that fitness person who's
number
besides?
one, I'm going to say is dehydration. The fitness trainer doesn't only need to know about the prescription of exercise, the intensity, duration, work to rest ratios. I talk about all of that in my book. They're going to have to understand how to titrate water. Because when I work out, I have 2 or 3 stations that I do, and then I go to the water fountain and I drink water. Okay? Right. I want to make sure I'm always well hydrated during my training. Yeah. And trainers are going to have to understand that too. Oh, okay, so Miss Olson, you 3 stations, we're going to have a sip of water now. And you're either going to have your own, and we're going to have electrolyte in it, whatever, and then we're going to have to figure out how well you tolerate that, because it still is trial and error, because we really don't know. Right. So anyway, but that's number one is dehydration, and number 2, like you say, is just the caloric intake during the day is going to dictate what the intensity is going to be. Because if you don't have any food in the system, how can you work out hard? And they're going to have to work with people's dietitians or nutrition people to make sure that on your exercise days, you eat a couple hours before, you have maybe an additional 40, 50 calories or so we can get you through the session. You would mention the gastroparesis, and then you also mentioned Novo Nordisk. When I started doing research for the book, I had read that Novo Nordisk at that time, 5-6 months ago, had 50 lawsuits for gastroparesis. Because if you take the drug long enough, you may have irreparable harm to the digestive tract. So the very thing that you're wanting to sort of have control over, which is the GLP peptide, you may actually be destroying its ability to do any work. And we know this. Let's go back to the bodybuilding. The more steroids that you take, the more testosterone you take as a man, the less testosterone that you make naturally. It's a synergistic effect. We're seeing the same thing with GLP. You want to have the ability to digest the foods. But if you have this in the system all the time, you're actually impairing the body's ability to sort of self-repair.
Yeah, and I think we also talk about GLP1 as being this magic weight loss bullet and all that stuff. And then again, I wanted to touch on that. A lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon of natural ways to raise GLP1, and even one of the Kardashian sisters has a supplement now, which is supposed to do it. And I won't get into it, but I've got to use.
There's actually a company out of San Francisco that makes a probiotic, and they actually have been making it for a number of years, and I can't remember the name of the company. It's a good product.
Pendulum
Company has got some big money behind them.
They have some research on their probiotic that it can lower blood sugar. I haven't seen the GLP1 studies, but I have analyzed their it's Akkermansia something, mucin or something. I'm always bad with those bacterial.
Big into the research. I spoke with one of their marketing people, and they say, no, we do research on this all the time. I really think that if people looked at Pendulum as sort of a better fit model, they may get the same benefits without any of the risks.
It's an interesting company. You can't deny. I like a company that pumps money into their product, and they absolutely do that. So I like the Pendulum company a lot.
Right. And like I say, more will show up at the door here soon, because
I'm sure there is.
As we start to hear more and more about the side effects, you've got diarrhea, you've got constipation, you've got nausea, you've got dizziness. Now, the industry will tell you that when you take GLP, you can reduce your risk for cardiovascular events. You may reduce your risk for Parkinson's. You may reduce your risk for some circulatory things. I'm like, what is this? What you said, the magic pill here? What's going on?
Is it due to the fact you're losing weight that you're
I,
lowering, or direct
yeah,
effect of the GLP-1?
that could be, and again,
Yeah.
that to me, it's what I get frustrated about with medicine. It's the chicken or the egg. Look at this amazing drug that we have, but all the people who lose weight have the same effects. So
Yeah.
how you lose it is the important fact, and then what you do when you're down 15, 20, 25% body weight, you start to
Right.
see the ramifications of that change in your lifestyle. Like you say,
Right.
reduce cardiovascular events, maybe reduce Parkinson's symptoms. Clearly, I'm assuming reduce peripheral vascular issues because
I would imagine.
you got less body weight and fat and all that stuff down in the lower body. The
Yeah.
the vascular return, the venous return is going to be improved a little bit. And I'm also a big fan of things like compression sleeves and some of these precision wellness tools that may
Hmm.
be able to be used. And I don't know. Again, I don't want to stretch it here because I don't want to see someone who's 400 pounds get into a cold plunge. I think that there would be much worse ramifications of doing that,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone who's, healthy bodybuilder type, fitness person, and they do the cold plunge. I'm sure it's got
Right.
great benefits. I am not a cold plunger, so I don't know, but I got friends who
Yeah.
swear by it, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, they think this is the greatest thing. So anyway,
Yeah. Good luck with that. No, I'm not doing it. Yeah, I don't like the cold. Getting back to the fitness industry for a minute, if there is going to be, and I know I originally called it, we talked first, an unholy alliance between the fitness industry and big pharma, and I don't think it is. I think it's just they, as you said, they see a group of people that can help them,
right.
with their capital, and so that. But is the gym industry prepared for this? And one of the things, for instance, in your book, you made the comment that in the past, the fitness industry has not been seen as healthcare providers,
Right.
but yet we're going to be dealing with people who are taking these medications. And is the gym industry prepared for interacting with doctors, with how their patients are doing? Is there, I would imagine that if the gym industry is going to be bringing people in, if they're going to have Ozempic protocols, which I have heard that some do have something like that in place,
Mhm.
then there should be a mechanism in place whereby the trainer can report the progress to the doctor so the doctor can see what's happening. And is that mechanism protocol in place between the gym world and the medical world yet?
Okay, so two-part answer. In some clubs, it is. Club chain that really is leading the way on this is Lifetime out of Minnesota. And they
I
have a
would imagine.
program now called Miora. And Miora is a longevity company out of Southern California, Orange County. And they literally moved their base of operations into I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, Cheshassin, Minnesota, which is the town that is the flagship center for Lifetime. And so Miora program is in operation there, and they already have exercise protocols. And the guy who runs the program, James Laval, is a pharmacist. So
Yes, I've
he
heard.
actually, believe it or not, he has the GLP-1 in Miora, which is in Lifetime. And so I don't know about an unholy alliance because Jim is a longevity guy. He's trained in pharmacy, but he's a
Yeah.
longevity guy. He understands all that cold plunge stuff, better than most people. And I think that Lifetime, yeah, they see that they're going to get a lot of people in there, but there's also, ways that they can promote supplements and use health savings account dollars to pay for this. So they have their things, but Equinox, Lifetime, there's a couple other clubs that are moving into it rapidly. And again, I'm
Hmm.
hoping that at least they're wanting to read my book. But I wanted to let you know that on October 10th, I'm speaking to a group of high level executives in the health club industry. Third slide in my presentation is, are you people aware of GLP-1 people in your clubs now? Are your trainers aware that they're there? Because a lot of times they're not telling anybody. We've got them at my club, and one of my trainers just a few weeks ago said, "Hey, there's this lady," and he noticed that she had like white, salty lips because she hadn't had any water in a couple days. So it's like she's not feeling good. She's not exercising very well, and her lips are like really sort of white and dry. And I said, I think you should probably talk to her about hydration stuff and electrolytes
Right.
and all this kind of stuff. So I think that the club industry, and again, Joe, it's my job to train the club industry. The club industry
Yeah.
is going to know because I'm going to tell them these things. Because it's not, if a trainer doesn't know that there's someone in his club that has this medication, they're not going to know what questions to ask. It's in my book. So if I can talk with these high level folks, they can filter that down to some of their clubs. I get to do more talks at the industry next year. Then I
Right.
will be able to sort of move the dial forward. Just like Bob Esqueri and Ann Gilbert are talking about emotional intelligence, very
Right.
important and under discussed aspect of working with GLP-1.
So I know you'll probably tell these heavy hitters this, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm going to throw that out to you. In that talk, I would hope you would say to them, hey, if you are going to be recommending supplements, we don't know how the supplements and these medications interact with each other. That's an issue right there. Also, in most gyms that I have been to, unfortunately, it is very different than when I worked in a gym, back in the 90s, where you get a health history questionnaire and you'd find out what's wrong with them. That's not done anymore. There's no health history questionnaire. It's sign the waiver, see you later. And that's a problem. Now, it may be different when they get a personal trainer, that there's a waiver, a health history questionnaire where somebody fills out that the trainer knows who they're working with.
Right.
But I'm being told on the back end by some fitness people that there is no health history questionnaire. So if they have a health history questionnaire, it should be modified to include questions about Ozempic. That's
Which is
a big
what I
thing.
have in my book. I have a
Yes.
health questionnaire in the book and all that kind of stuff. So
And that waiver needs to be changed, because the waiver basically says, hey, if you get into a problem, if you have a heart attack, if you fall down some stairs, you're waiving your right to sue us. Well, if the trainer is coming in contact with the person taking these medications, what's that liability going to be? Is the trainer going to be protected? Which again, that's a whole other can of fish, because a lot of personal trainers are subcontractors and not employees.
Right.
I think that's a problem right there. But
Yep.
that waiver, I think, should be modified such that, hey, if you are coming to our gym and we do have this protocol in place, and anything does happen, you're not going to be on your own. And I think people need to hear that. And again, I'm just getting off the top of my head some things that I don't know what if there is anything like that in place, but that would be
the
something I would
liability
tell.
issue was the first thing that I wrote about in the manual. The first chapter I completed was on legal liability, and I went back to the New York Sports Club issue where the person died after taking
Right.
the
It was a stimulant, ephedra, and she was taking hypertension medicine, and
yeah.
I think had a stroke doing deadlifts.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So
Worst
anyway,
case.
and of course, interestingly enough, they settled out of court for a lot less than they could have ruined the company. But
Yeah.
my words of wisdom in that chapter were, let's not repeat the same mistakes that the industry's done in the past. And
Right.
now, do I think that the 3,000 medical fitness centers in the United States are more than capable? Absolutely. So let's put them in their own category. Medical fitness
Sure.
centers. Everyone's an exercise physiologist. Most of them have advanced certifications from some group, and they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of clinical hours working in cardiac rehab, hypertension, diabetes, weight loss, etc. A lot of those medical fitness centers do have weight loss in them. But you're right, the health clubs need to, it is a great opportunity for them to learn.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this could actually be a good thing for the gym world, if they do it the right way. And the goal ultimately would be, let's not stay on these medications forever. Let's get you where you got to get you in a healthy lifestyle, so you can get off these
Right.
medications
And
eventually.
I'm going to put a plug in for that Miura program in Minnesota. He actually had a bell-shaped curve. And at the first part of the bell-shaped curve, the first third was figuring out the dosages. How much, people get the right amount of weight loss per week. They're not sick, or they're stagnant or whatever. Let's get you right in the middle. and then they plateau for a certain amount while they're getting the exercise program, and then every 4 to 6 weeks, boom, they reduce the dosage. 4 to 6 weeks, reduce the dosage again. So at the bottom end of that bell-shaped curve, after 6, 8, 10 months, they are off the medication. But they want them to be members of Lifetime for life, and I think it's a great mindset, because I write in the book. I said you really need to look at these people as lifetime members of your club, and I think I wrote in there that my father had a lifetime membership to Universal Health Spas in the 60s, and when he passed away in 2006, he was the last member who had a lifetime membership.
Wow.
And I think it was down to 78 cents a month or something like that. But you know what? I don't know that those are going to come back, but I think that the mindset of having someone as a lifetime member, because I used to work at the Santa Barbara Athletic Club, and there are people who have been members there for 30, 35 years. Why? Because they like it there. It's a home away from home.
Yeah, and I think the gym world needs to get into that Cheers mentality where everybody knows your name, and
right.
it is a home away from home, as you said. And I don't think big fitness has done that to a large
degree.
Big
box centers are going to be real interesting to see how because I walked there's a Planet Fitness right down the street from my office, and I walked in, and I said, "Do you guys have a director of fitness training?" And they said, "We don't have fitness trainers." And I said, "Really?" Because I know that some Planet Fitness centers do, but the one by my office does not. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting, because they just sit around the front desk and look pretty or whatever they do. So you're right. There needs to be a change, but we've got studios, which are up and coming. We've got Pilates centers, which I think could have some effect on just regular. I mean, people love their Pilates. They love their Pilates. So so the retention factor is going to be there. And I think that the emotional intelligence is there with Pilates instructors as well. And then you've got the clubs like Lifetime and some of these other ones where you have trainers and you have people that would be I think they're very eager to work with this group, knowing that they could have some long-term client success there. So, you mentioned a little bit about the outcomes, is that, that's my thing. I'm an outcomes guy. I've published studies on this. I just, I don't know that there are going to be a lot of clubs that are going to be doing outcomes, but they really should be writing down, body weights, body fat percentages, all those kind of things. Because I have a software program that I built years ago that is not really an Ozempic one, but I think that that's going to be the next phase for some of the big tech companies.
It's going to be an interesting future. I'm looking forward to seeing what the gym world does with all of this Ozempic stuff, and hopefully, hopefully it's a win-win situation for everybody, and especially for the American public who lose weight, get healthier, and eventually we have a healthier country. Eric, I appreciate you spending so much time with me today. We talked a lot about your GLP-1 specialist course. For that person who wants to take that course, how do they do it?
They'll log on to medhealthfit.com, medhealthfit.com, and right on the first page it goes right into the Ozempic program, and they can look at it. And I've reduced the price of the course because I think that I want to make it as economically feasible for trainers to buy into this, or clubs as well. And we've got our own certification course. We've got relationships with a couple of the big agencies already, so the CEUs will be there come December. It could be a really, really good earning potential for them. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to figure out how the exercise is going to be so important while they're taking this medication. And I think that the savvy trainer is going to say, I want to be in on that. So
I would agree as well. And I'm going to link to your website in the description as well, so people can check you out directly from the website. Yeah, definitely. Do you have any closing thoughts for people?
Well, my closing thoughts would be for the trainers, in that this generation of trainers is different from when I came up 35 years ago. Like you say, if you're a trainer that's not using a health assessment, I mean, that's strike one right there. So my goal for the mindset of GLP-1 is that trainers will learn an awful lot about how they need to be a much better trainer. And I'm not wagging a finger at anybody. I've never told a trainer how I think they should work with a diabetic, a cancer patient, a hypertension person, or anyone else. But here's the information that I lay out for you use it the best way that you can. So, and that would be my advice for these trainers as well. The information is here. It's not very long. It's not a 500-page manual, and I think that it's going to give you as much information as I think you can do, and then stimulate you to go online and read a few other types of things about this as well. So,
yeah, education is the key, like with everything
like
else.
everything else.
Eric, I really appreciate your time. Eric Durak, it's been fun as always and very educational. Again, I'm going to link to your website and your course in the description below for people who want to check it out. And thanks a bunch for your
All right,
time.
thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.